Good morning. This is Arlan Suderman, Chief Commodities Economist at StoneX, coming to you from the trading floor at about 10 a.m. on this Friday, January the 16th. A couple of items I wanted to cover today. First of all, the White House released a document late on January the 14th documenting the rare earth mineral crisis that we're in here in the United States and why rare earth minerals have become the central focus of our negotiations with China, and why China is using that as the major chess card, chess piece, so to speak, as the two countries continue to play a game of 3D chess in the world. Virtually everything that President Trump is doing in the way of international relations, geopolitical actions, whether it be Venezuela, whether it be Iran, or whatever it may be, it nearly always has something to do with China, and this 3D chess game continues. The document released on the evening of January the 14th. And I'm going to read a couple of small excerpts from it. It's a rather long document, but I think this captures the heart of what I have been saying for quite some time, really for about the last 8 months or so, why rare earth minerals are at the core of our negotiations with China. It's much bigger than soybeans or anything like that, or electric vehicles or whatever. But as of 2024, the document says the United States was 100% net import reliant for 12 critical minerals and 50% or greater net import reliant for a further 29 critical minerals. Even where the United States has a domestic mining capacity, such as for cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements, the United States lacks a domestic processing capacity to avoid downstream net import reliance. In fact, and this is what I've been telling you, although the United States is the second largest producer of mined unprocessed rare earth oxides in the world, the United States' limited processing capacity still requires rare earth oxides to be exported for further refining and processing before re-imported for domestic use. And as a result, the United States is too entirely reliant on imports of rare earth permanent magnets to meet commercial demand, and the United States production currently meets only a fraction of our defense needs for making defense weapons. Mining a mineral domestically does not safeguard the national security of the United States if the United States remains dependent on a foreign country for the processing of that mineral. And as I've been telling you, that country is China. How over the last 3 decades, they've been executing a plan to get a monopoly on the processing of rare earth minerals. And I'll read on now. In addition, the Secretary found the United States lacks access to a sufficiently secure and reliable supply chain for these minerals, even with respect to the minerals for which the United States has only partial import reliance. Supply disruptions can still expose important sectors such as defense, aerospace, telecommunications, and transportation to serious risk. For example, the limited capacity of the domestic critical minerals industry, combined with foreign dominance, has exposed the Department of War to significant supply chain risks. For several key minerals, the vast majority of the Department of War supply chains rely on at least one supplier from a single country, and I would argue that that is China, but the document doesn't specifically call out China, underscoring the urgent need to diversify sources and to build resilient domestic capabilities. The Secretary further found that critical mineral markets are prone to price volatility. Price volatility hinders private sector investment, limits market based economies' willingness to maintain capacity, and leads to facility closures and threatens the long term viability of domestic mining, processing, and downstream manufacturing capacity. And so, what we see here is many of the companies who were processing these rare earth minerals, because of the undependability of prices and China's dominance in the industry and their work to acquire some of these companies, et cetera, and control the price, had been able to run some of these companies out of business, or these companies had simply decided to quit business, giving the full dominance and monopoly to China, which controls, I've seen anywhere from 90 to 97% monopoly. I'm going to say 90% monopoly of these products. And China really started restricting the exports of these products last spring, but in October made maybe a strategic error move in, but maybe it was strategic planned. I don't know, but said in early October, we're just going to stop exporting these to everybody. It's not just the United States, but everybody, except for who we want to have them. And that would be like fellow BRICS members or whatever. That gives China the ability to choose the winners and losers and which countries can have a strong manufacturing economy of consumer products that require these minerals, everything from cell phones to F-150 pickup trucks. It gives them the ability to choose winners and losers and who can develop defense radars, defense weapons, etc., and to defend themselves. And so that's where it comes into national security. Now, this plays into the recent move into Venezuela as well, where President Trump went in and extracted the current president at that time um, from Venezuela on weapons and drug charges. Now, at the time, I told you that Venezuela was rich in rare earth minerals, although largely undeveloped, except for some illegal, what is said to be illegal mining activity. Since then, I've seen some evidence and some indication that that so-called illegal mining activity may have actually been, in fact, Chinese and Iranian workers working together to mine these critical minerals. And as you look at the rare earth supply, it's estimated that roughly 50% of the world's rare earth mineral supply is in China. And Venezuela, although still not fully documented, may have roughly half of that supply level. And of course, there's many different kinds of minerals, so it's going to vary depending on which mineral you're talking about, specific use, who has what of what quantities, etc. But that may have been the final straw that led President Trump to go into Venezuela to extract the president, to exert our influence there, to cut China and Iran off at the pass, so to speak, if I can use that term, um, and give us an opportunity at least to maybe have access to those rare earth minerals. Now, the other component obviously is crude oil as well, with Venezuela having the biggest crude oil reserves in the world. But rare earth minerals are the critical thing that gets very little public discussion. But this document from the White House sheds a lot of light on what I've been telling you. One other issue I wanted to briefly talk to you about, and that is payments to farmers. We know that the White House is planning $11.1 billion in farm aid coming to farmers here later this winter, hopefully before spring planting. Like I think the payment's going to start at the end of February. But also told you that Congress was working on packages. It does look like that is continuing to move forward as part of the reconciliation bill. Or the continuing resolution, I should say, to try to keep the government open and not shut down on January 30th. Now, will it be a continuing resolution? Will it be passage of funding bills to actually fund the government the rest of the year? The Republicans have been working to get the funding bills for the remaining arms of the government through. Democrats in the Senate have been blocking that. There's some indication that they may want to shut down the government once again. If they do, the USDA was fully funded the last time the government shut down, and they got a CR to move through. Funding for the USDA is in that. So we do not expect the USDA to shut down. And Department of Energy, possibility. We'll have to see how that works and what gets passed ahead of January 30th and what doesn't. But one piece of legislation going through is Republicans are supporting $15 billion in additional farmer aid. Democrats are supporting $17 billion of additional aid, with both trying to get these payments in the resolution, whatever it may be, before January 30th. You think, okay, that's good. It looks probable farmers are going to get it. But the way politics works in Washington, don't count on it until it actually happens. Expect some political wrangling. And it looks like what we're going to see is the Democrats perhaps leveraging it, trying to package it together for restoring some of the SNAP funding that was taken out in the One Big Beautiful Bill last summer, which Republicans will be resistant to have in there. And so Democrats will be able to leverage that and say, well, if you want the farmer aid, you're going to have to support restoring the SNAP payments, et cetera. So a lot of political battling going on here with both having a leverage then to blame one over the other. Republicans that blame the Democrats for not supporting aid for farmers. Democrats blame Republicans for not supporting SNAP payments, et cetera. It looks like we're going to relitigate that battle that took place this last summer, and the farmer aid is going to be part of that political football. So we'll continue to monitor that and see how that plays out. But it looks like between now and January 30th is when this will heat up, and possibly longer if, in fact, we do not see things resolved and we have another partial government shutdown by then. So we'll continue monitor it and come to you from the trading floor with further updates. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to continue to receive these updates from the trading floor. Have a happy weekend.